Our special guest this afternoon, Van Jones, is on a crusade against craziness. Van's a political commentator and contributor to the cable news network better known as CNN. He's hosting a reoccurring CNN primetime special, The Messy Truth with Van Jones, and has appeared on the network during special election coverage. A graduate of the University of Tennessee and Yale University Law School, Van was the main advocate for the Green Jobs Act signed into law by President Bush in 2007. 2 years later, Van worked as the Green Job Advisor for President Obama. Van's a recipient of many awards, including the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leader designation, Rolling Stone's 12 Leaders Who Get Things Done, Fast Company's 12 Most Creative Minds on Earth, and Time's 100 Most Influential People in the World. The author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, Van will be joined on stage today by Bay Area author, actor, playwright, and KGO radio host Brian Copeland. Please join me in welcoming our special guests, Van and Brian, in conversation.
Sorry to say the Bay Area doesn't care for you apparently very much, Van. Sorry to say that.
It's so good to be here and not in Washington, D.C.
Yes, it is.
And it's so good to be sitting here with a microphone and no Trump supporter to my left or my right. Oh, it's a good day. It's a good day.
All right, since you brought it up, now I read the book and I've got all kinds of questions for you, but since you brought it up, I got to ask you, because I watched your commentary all through the 2016 campaign. How did you not reach across the desk and choke Jeffrey Lord? I mean, the man was saying stuff that was just nonsensical, and you go, you don't believe what's coming out of your mouth.
But that's not true. Jeff, I will say about this, and he's indifferent than other folks. No, different than other folks. Jeffrey and I are actually friends. And we're still friends.
He blurbed the book.
He blurbed the book, and we're actually friends. We just don't agree on anything. But the reason why why Jeffrey and I got along, because we kind of became the Ernie and Bert of American politics for for the campaign season, was first his mom's sick, and my mom's sick. And so at the commercial breaks and that kind of stuff, we're trying to figure out, how do you deal with dementia? How do you deal? So we had like a real common problem that we were trying to figure out. But the other thing is that Jeffrey would say that same stuff on the air, at the commercial break, in the green room, in the elevator.
Really?
Down to the Uber. In the Uber, in the hotel lobby checking in, at his room telling me good night. So he actually believed all that stuff, and he was for Trump and was writing about Trump running before Trump ran. So, it's very hard for us to understand in this sort of bubble, as they call it, that there are tens of millions of people who see it very differently, who see us very differently, and that's part of why I wrote the book.
All right, well, let's talk about the book. And it's interesting, I was saying backstage that I really enjoyed the book, which is kind of a weird thing to say about a book like this, because it's like, here's where you messed up. but it really was an enlightening read, and it really did get me to think about things in a different way. So let's take it apart. Beyond the Messy Truth, how we came apart, how we come together. Let's start with how we came apart. Now, you write that the table was set for Trumpism 20 years ago. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's tough because everybody, you wake up in the morning and you kind of wait, maybe it was all a bad dream. Maybe. And then you reach for your phone and commence to freak out, for the rest of the day. I can't believe. And that whole thing that's been going on now for 2 years has got to come to an end. It's got to come to an end. A lot of us say, Donald Trump is crazy, he's insane, and, it turns out there's evidence to support this point.
Yeah. No, there is.
There's evidence.
The real deal, no, seriously, no jokes aside, there really is.
But there's other definitions of crazy besides just, narcissism, personality disorder. And one of those definitions is somebody who does the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And since he came down that escalator more than 2 years ago, liberals, progressives, Democrats have basically been doing the same thing over and over and over again. He's a bigot, he's a sexist, he's crazy, he's incompetent, he shouldn't be doing this, to no effect, influencing basically ourselves,
right,
and not asking the other question, which is, well, why is there's this big disagreement? So the reason I think we sometimes get this wrong is you got to take a big step back. You don't get to this kind of an outcome with everything going well. So the premise for me in the book, the way I start the book, is I point out that for the past 20 to 30 years, both political parties suck, okay? And they both, and we can get tribal about this, but let's just be honest and look at that there was a bipartisan elite consensus at the top of our society for 30 years that agreed on stuff that hurt tens of millions of Americans. Both political parties in the 1990s said these trade deals would be awesome. NAFTA would be great. And if there were any losers, they'd all be retrained and the government would retrain them and we'd all be better off. That turned out not to be true. But Democrats and Republicans were agreeing on that at the top. Both political parties said that we could deregulate the banks and we would be great. What's the big problem in America in the late 1990s, The bankers are oppressed, and they're just,
Free Wall Street.
Free Wall Street, man. I mean, these bankers are being chained by red tape, keep Pookie in jail, but free the bankers, right? And $1 trillion of damage to the economy, 1 million plus Americans lose their home. Both parties said it was a good idea. Both parties said build prisons from coast to coast. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. 3 strikes and you're out, all this sort of stuff. Because we had an addiction crisis to narcotics in the black and brown community. The response wasn't, oh, this is terrible, we need a health care response. It was lock them all up. Both parties built prisons coast to coast. Bill Clinton came into office, 1 million people behind bars, left 2 million people behind bars. Both parties said it was a good idea.
Okay.
Both parties said we should get in these dumb wars that we can't get out of. You go through, so at some point, hurt people holler. At some point, when you have both parties failing at that level on a bipartisan basis, you will have a bipartisan rebellion. And in the Democratic Party, that looked like Black Lives Matter and Bernie Sanders. In the Republican Party, it looked initially like the Tea Party, and then it curdled into this Trump thing. And
I like this Trump thing.
Yeah, is that fair? So before we then go and start, fanning ourselves and fainting, we've got to take some responsibility for the fact that, those of us who benefited from neoliberal policy, corporate globalization, whatever you want to call it, those of us who benefited, frankly, we're diffuse and ungrateful. I don't get up every morning and, be thankful that I got like a slightly cheaper cup of coffee because of globalization.
All right, okay, go ahead.
But the people, and this is the most important point, the people who are the losers as a result of all those policies are concentrated and pissed. And they're concentrated and pissed in the industrial heartland, the so-called Rust Belt. And lest we freak out too much about this election, those of us who are liberal, progressive, Democrat, we lost the election because out of 120 million votes cast, 120 million, 70,000 votes, only 70,000 votes spread out over 3 states jumped the fence from Democrat to Republican. That's why we lost, 70,000 votes. So you can say, oh my God, the Nazis are taking over and this is terrible and what are we going to do? Or we can say, why did those 70,000 people in those 3 Rust Belt states jump the fence? And I have discovered, to my shock and horror, that we know very little about life in those towns. And frankly, most of us care even less. Many of us fled those towns. And that if we are going to be successful as progressives, we're going to have to keep the circle that we've built, which is a beautiful circle, we can talk about it, that includes a lot of people who've been left out for a long time. But we're also going to have to draw our circle a little bit bigger next time to capture some of that pain that's out there that frankly we weren't aware of. And that's a big part of the reason why I write the book.
All right, well, you talk about that there are a lot of people out there who think differently than we do, and people whose circumstances we don't know. You write an open letter to liberals and an open letter to conservatives. And in your open letter to liberals, you talk about some of these folks in the Rust Belt, and you personify them in a character you call Bryce Shoemaker. And you talk about how he was a working class guy who had a nice middle class existence, and then the factory closed down, and so he lost his job, and he can't keep his house, and his son is addicted to opioids, and we have to feel his pain. So I guess my question is this. A lot of these folks are the same folks who told every other group forever that you got to work harder. Why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Why are you blaming circumstances? This is the land of opportunity. So I guess the question is you say we should have empathy. How would you answer progressives who say, why should we have empathy? Why shouldn't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, as for generations they've told people of color and everybody else to do?
Because we're not despicable people.
You think that's a despicable that is a despicable attitude? Those who said pull yourselves up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, I think I do, and in the spirit in which it's said, it can be despicable. Is it a legitimate point of view? Is it a view that I can respect? Yes, but part of what I want to suggest to liberals and to progressives. Is that this is a character testing moment for ourselves. I don't go to West Virginia, as I have, and fight for coal miners, as the Love Army did this year. By the way, my perspectives are my own, but they're shaped by the fact that I'm a part of an organization called the Dream Corps, and we work every day to build bridges, not blow them up. We work every day to find solutions. The easy thing to do the cheap way to become a leader is just to divide people based on a problem. The harder thing to do is to unite people based on a solution. And at the Dream Corps, we try and do that every day with criminal justice, thank you. We have a campaign called #Cut50, working with Republicans and Democrats, led, by the way, by Jessica Jackson Sloan, who's an elected official here in Marin County, the mayor of Mill Valley. What I am trying to suggest, with the book and answer your question, this is a character testing moment for us. See, we thought that the Republican Party was going to be put on trial in 2016 for its blind spots, especially when it comes to bigotry, when it comes to sexism, when it comes to xenophobia, Islamophobia. We thought the Republican Party was going to be put on trial for its shortcomings. And it was, and it lost the popular vote by 3 million. And the vast majority of people of color voted against that party because of its failures.
90%, right?
Well, 90% for African Americans, 70% for Latinos and Asians.
Yeah.
But we missed a part of the plot here. We were being put on trial as well for some of our shortcomings. and some of our blind spots and some of the things that we didn't understand about the country. And in those critical states, we got put on trial and we got found guilty for a certain type of condescension or remove or arrogance or elitism that's a blind spot for us.
Can you talk about that for a minute? Exactly what do progressives need to look at in terms of turning inward and looking at, here are the flaws of progressives, here are the mistakes we have, here are the attitudes, the elitist attitudes that we have that put us out of touch with the folks in the Rust Belt, with the folks in the red states?
Well, part of it is just so hard for us to accept this argument in the first place, because we like to think that we're the good people. I mean, that's just, nobody walks around thinking, I'm a bad person. Everybody thinks that they're good. So we like to think of ourselves, we're inclusive, we're embracing, we love everybody. But here's the problem. If you listen to how we talk about people in the red states, you would have a very hard time distinguishing us from the way that colonizers look at third world countries. These ignorant, backwards, unwashed, uneducated idiots who are so stupid that they're tricked into voting against their own economic self-interest and support these Republicans. It's so unfortunate how ignorant these people are. We need to convert them to our NPR religion, you see. and force feed them some kale, you see. Get them a little bit healthier. And then they'll be worthy and ready to understand the truth, of what we have to say, right? That's how we come across. So let me just take one of those arguments. I know you have a lot of questions to get to, and I'm long-winded. I'm a Southerner.
No worries.
But let me just take.
We got time, don't we? We got time.
Yeah. Let me just take one of these arguments, and trust me, I will kick Trump and the Nazis in the butt in 1 minute. But let's just talk about us first. These ignorant, poor white people who vote against their economic self-interest by supporting Republican policies. Please stop saying that. I can't tell you. Look, I'm a Southerner. I grew up on the edge of a small town in rural West Tennessee. Went to public schools, the whole deal. Some of my closest friends are Trump voters from my childhood. Some of the best people I know. And I'm going to tell you right now, saying that is, first of all, it's hypocritical. And I'll tell you why. Do you know the white people who vote against their own economic self-interest every time? Rich white liberals who vote for tax increases to pay for programs their kids will never use. But we don't say that those people are stupid. We say they're awesome, right? That's the best thing about rich white liberals, is that they vote against their economic self-interest to help other people. Okay? So.
Okay, however.
Okay,
go ahead. I'm going to give you however on this.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. What's your however?
I'm not a rich white liberal, so that's how I'm asking the question.
What's your however?
Now, here's my however. Was I read this in the book, and I thought, well, wait a minute. But how would you respond to this argument? That the difference is that those who are wealthy, who are voting against their own interest, are doing so. They're informed. They know what they're doing. Whereas there are some people who are in the red states who believe that by voting this way that it is going to economically benefit them. And I'm not saying that's my argument. I'm saying, how would you respond to that argument?
This is why I write the book. Look, let me just make the case for a white guy who's a working class guy or even a poor guy. And I say guy on purpose because that's the devil now. The straight, white, heterosexual Christian male who's a red state voter voted for Trump. That's the enemy now.
Okay.
That's the person that we hate. That's the person who's made everything terrible. I'm trying to make this point as if it's not true. So you're like,
Do Dude, you're in Marin County, for God's sakes. What do you think you are? You're in Marin County.
That's why I'm here.
It's called a bubble. We like it in our bubble here.
I'm a red state white guy. I don't want America's government to go and rob some rich family and bring the money over to my house and bribe me to be dependent on the government. I don't want America's government to go rob some rich family and bring the money over here and undermine my parenting choices. If my kids are so goddamn stupid that they go out there and they drop out of school and they get on drugs and they have a bunch of babies they can't pay for, I don't want the government robbing rich people to bail them out. I want them to learn a tough lesson, because my values are about independence and self-reliance, and I'm willing to put my values over my money. Yeah, you can bring me some money you stole, but I don't want your stolen money. And if my family can't figure out a way to get where we're trying to get on our own, we don't want your stolen money. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I disagree with that argument, but it's not stupid. And I can disagree with it without disrespecting the person or disregarding their values.
Okay.
And that's my point.
That makes sense.
That's my point. And the problem is, when you disagree and then you disrespect and then you disregard, then you've now added to the division, which is what Trump desperately needs. So that means that then when there's an area where we do agree, we aren't even on speaking terms. I've already unfriended you, you know? So even when we do agree on issues like the addiction crisis, like the fact that the criminal justice system and our court system are an embarrassment, Democrats and Republicans agree on that. Even when we agree that our kids are not being prepared for these artificial intelligence jobs and the robots and the Mars, we agree that the education thing isn't working. We agree that the addiction crisis is out of hand, criminal justice. We don't work on any of that. We don't do anything about that because we're so busy fighting where we don't agree, which I don't mind. I like fighting where we don't agree. But we fight so destructively that then we're not able to get anything done. And I'm going to tell you this. We're supposed to fight where we don't agree. I don't want anybody to mishear me. I'm not some kumbaya dude, okay? Please don't mishear me. There's some things in America we're just got to fight about. I'm not going to let go the hands of the LGBTQ community. I don't care what they say. By the way, you got this president who's now attacking transgender war fighters. When it was his time to go to war, he said, "My footsie hurts."
5 times.
5 times. But he's now attacking transgender war fighters. And I'm going to tell you right now, let me be very honest. If you're waiting for Van Jones to go fight some terrorists, you're going to wait for a long time. I'm scared to go. I'm not going. That's not what I'm good at. And if a transgender person or anybody else wants to go and defend this country, I have their back 100%. I will defend them to the end of the day. I'm not done. So we're going to have to fight about that. I'm not going to turn my back on Muslims. American Muslims are the best Americans that we have. Let's be very clear about that. And that's objective. I'm a Christian. I'll tell you, objectively, American Muslims, lowest crime rate, lowest divorce rate, highest entrepreneurship rate. Every Muslim I know has either a job or a college degree or a business. If a Muslim family moved in next door to you, you would be happy because the chances of your kids getting in trouble just went way down, because American Muslims are awesome. And people say, well, we're supposed to attack them and be mad at them because we're mad at terrorism. So, well, hold on a second. According to the data, most terrorists are not Muslims. So why am I mad at these people? So we can go down the whole list. Immigrants, the whole deal. There's some stuff we're just going to have to fight about. And you fight as hard as you can for your values and what you believe in. But you can't only fight and still have a country. And we sometimes forget democracies can fail. So you want to fight in a way that it's constructive disagreement, not destructive disagreement. When it's constructive, thesis, remember this? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, remember that? The third step, where something actually happens. We're just thesis, antithesis, thesis, antithesis. Time for commercial. That's not how it's supposed to work. So I want you to be very clear. I'm a strong progressive. I'm on the left side of Pluto. But even I now am saying, guys, folks, this is not going to work. And we've got to start finding some areas of common ground beyond the battleground, or we're not going to have a country.
All right, you kind of piggybacking on what you were talking about how Muslims are scapegoated. One of the things that you write is that there are a lot of progressives, and this is in terms of trying to understand how Trump voters and Trump supporters think, who believe that if you voted for Trump, you're either an open racist, you're a closeted racist, or you're an enabler of racists or misogynists or xenophobia or whatever. And you write about this family who you put on television, a middle-class family, I believe a couple of them were professional in a red state, and they voted for Trump, and they told you that the way that they were, in terms of all of the horrible things he says, they can like put it in a drawer, I think was the analogy used, and
crumple it up and throw it away.
Crumple it up and throw it away. So isn't that... Let me put it this way. How would you respond to those who say, well, wait, that is a perfect textbook example of enabling? It's like if you know that these statements are racist, you know these statements are misogynistic, you know these attitudes are xenophobic, but you're just going to disregard that because I don't want him to put somebody in the Supreme Court who I disagree with. Aren't you, in fact, enabling and supporting the very things that you claim that you don't support?
Yeah. Have you had this argument with anybody?
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, over and over and over.
How's it gone?
Blue in the face.
Right. So, look, I agree with you. Now what? So that's my problem. Mm-hmm. We've made the argument. We can keep making it. We probably should keep making it.
We should or should not?
I said we probably should keep making it.
Okay.
But the problem with this is that we are expecting somebody else to see our point of view and change their worldview, admit that they were wrong, perhaps apologize, have some big epiphany, join our cause, and we don't have to do anything except just stay right. And what I would say about that is an unlikely movie that you just described. Mm-hmm. It's just an unlikely thing. You're
not going to change anybody's
mind. It just strikes me as unlikely. Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it'll happen on Tuesday. Let's give it a try. But my suspicion is it's not going to happen. My suspicion is that we're just going to keep talking past each other, driving the discourse and unity down, atrophying the muscles of cooperation even where we agree, and making it more likely that this guy wins again. So, since I don't want 8 years of Trump and then Ivanka, which is the plan.
Are you serious?
Yes, which is the plan. So, since I don't want 16 years of Trump, I'm willing to do something differently. And look, this is very tough because we are now in this addictive pattern to the upset. Look, a lot of you guys are self-help people, you're spiritual people, you meditate, you do yoga. So I want to have a real conversation. You know, most of your media now is just this sort of masturbatory circle jerk of how great we are, how right we are, and how bad the other people are. And I'm going to tell you, that's not going to work. You have the emotional resources in this community and the financial resources and the intellectual resources to perform at a higher level than you've been performing. And we need you to.
Okay.
So...
let's talk about how.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Look, It's Sunday. I'm gonna preach. Look, I have in my house these small, ungrateful, unemployed people.
Preach. Preach.
I don't know how they got there. I don't know why they think that Jana and I are named Uber and they were supposed to just drive their little butts everywhere. But they have these weekend activities, athletics, it's, soccer all the time, it's basketball, it's all these different things. And here's what I've observed about them. When they lose a big game, especially one they just knew they were going to win, they just knew they were going to win, and they lose, and it's a big game, you have to just give them a minute. Because they're going to be very upset. And they're going to complain. They're going, the soccer pitch was terrible, and the other team sucked, and the ref cheated, and Comey, and the Russians, and I mean, and you have to give them that moment because they're upset. But if you're a good parent or a good grandparent, at some point on the drive home, you have to start saying, guys, I get it. But was there anything that we could have done that would have actually helped us to win anyway? Because I don't think you're going to have a championship team criticizing what other people did. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say to us at this point, guys, folks, sisters, brothers, it's been 2 years since the guy came down the escalator. 2 years. 2 years. And the confession, look, the politics of accusation is easy. Mm-hmm. If you vote for a bigot, you are a bigot. You should have known better. I don't care how much pain you're in. Black people have been in pain for 400 years. We're not voting for Nazis, blah, 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 blah. I could do that. I could have written a book called Whitelash, You'd have bought it. So
2 copies.
Yeah, you'd bought one for your cousin. So look, I mean, that's easy. That's easy. But when do we get to have a politics of confession? Because here's the real truth. Here's what we never say, even to each other, because it's just too painful. We didn't work that hard to stop Trump. Mm-hmm. We really didn't. I mean, I'm a historian. So, understand this stuff, I can go way, way back in history to try to, put it in perspective. I can go all the way back to 2008. I remember you in 2008. You worked your butt off in 2008. You went to swing states in 2008. You had house parties, you phone banked. Anybody who wasn't involved, you would call them, yell at them, beg, please, and you didn't have to because we killed ourselves in 2008. We put it all on the line in 2008. 2012, same thing. People put it out. It was a war. It was a crusade. We did everything that we could to stop Mitt Romney. Who I would not only vote for, I'd give him a lap dance if he would be president right now. I would. I'm ready. Please come back, Mitt. And you would too.
So what happened?
So
what happened?
Hold on. I'm being honest. Nobody wants to tell the truth. We didn't fight. He can't win. My God, that idiot. He's just a joke. It's impossible for him to win. The demographics and the blah, 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 blah. Arrogant. arrogant, out of touch. And somebody felt they had to send us a message. Somebody felt that however terrible Trump was, there were places in this country that I haven't gone to, well, hadn't gone to, I've been there now, damn near live there now, but I hadn't gone there, nor had you. And that if they didn't do something, once again, they would be left out. Now, is that an excuse for voting for some? No. I'm not saying that it's acceptable, but I'm saying that I understand. You don't have to agree to understand. And when you understand, you talk differently. When you don't understand, you talk differently. So all I'm saying to you is that if you want 8 or 16 years of Trump, let's just keep doing what we're doing. How's it working for you? And I'm going to say one more thing. Look, guys, I'm not asking you to do anything that's fair. If you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you're LGBTQ, if you're Jewish, if you're a Muslim, what I'm saying to you should strike you as profoundly and offensively unfair, because you've already been through hell, and you've already had to put the goddamn country on your back every time. You already have a boot on your neck and are criticized for not protesting about it the proper way. You already, I know. I'm not asking you to do something that's fair. I'm telling you, it is unfair and unjust for you to have to be good. But if you're not, who is? That's my question. The problem that you have now is you are never, and this is bad news for you, because you've been working on it for 2 years, you are never going to out-ugly Donald Trump. You're not. You can't. You're not going to out-hate these Nazis. You know why? You suck at hating people. You're just too sensitive. You're too sensitive. You cry at every movie. You're just not cut out for this. You're not going to succeed with this. And so all I'm asking you to do is to remember who you are. See, I can say this because I am a follower of Obama and her husband. And her husband. Don't leave him out. Don't leave him out. I'm sick of that. He had a role. He had a role.
Let me get in here. Let me ask you a question.
Because you listen, they're going to be here for a second.
Okay.
This is important. This is important. When Obama said, when she said, when they go low, we go high. Nobody told her she was wrong. Nobody said she was an idiot. Nobody said she was an appeaser. Nobody said she's a normalizer. Nobody said any of that, because it was right when she said it, and it's right today. It was right when Dr. King said, I'm not going to let anybody drag me so low as to hate him, and it's right today. I'm not going to throw Obama and Dr. King under the bus and in the garbage can for this orange idiot or anybody else. I'm going to stand up for what we believe in, and I want you to do the same thing. So now.
All right. There's so much there to unpack. All right, we'll start with this question. Do you in any way regret using the term whitelash on election night?
No.
Because progressives took it one way,
Yeah.
and conservatives took it as an is. Progressives were like, I was sitting there nodding my head, and where you had conservatives who were saying, wait a minute, you write it in the book, that's completely racist. What if we had said the Obama elections were a blacklash? How would you look at that?
Look, I don't regret saying it because I do live television. And you have to call it like you see it in the moment. You have to remember, I'm a lot better known now than I was then. Look, most of you guys thought I was born at CNN that night. So would I today use that term? No, because I have such a big platform that if I did, it would cause all kind of problems and drama, and it would undermine what I'm up to. But that guy That guy sitting on that stage that night with every one of my friends texting me, my Muslim friends texting me saying, should we leave the country tonight? No, that's not funny.
No,
I mean,
literally,
seriously.
you literally got those texts.
Seriously, because, the reason I say it's not funny is because they weren't joking. I mean, if I said it, I'd be joking. If I said, should I go to Canada tonight, that'd be funny. But you got people from countries like Somalia where if the government changes that way, they might come get you in the morning. And so they literally, should I leave tonight? Should I pack tonight? Dreamers, immigrants. So that guy sitting there that night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, with my own wife texting me, please call home, the boys are upset, you need to call home. I'm like, I'm on TV, how the hell am I call home? No, I'm proud of what I said, and I'm proud because it's very rare that you're able to give voice to a feeling I think that we had like 60 million people around the world watching, to give voice to a feeling and to have 2 syllables do that much work. So as a communicator, somebody, and don't forget, we've been sitting up there all night, and Trump has been elected, and nobody has said the word race one time.
Yeah. And
we've been sitting up there for 6 hours. And I said, geez, man, I'm the only, black dude up here. I don't want to be the one to have to say it, but damn, I guess I will,
Do you think that was a deliberate omission? Do you think that was something that was planned, or do you just think that the analysts weren't thinking that way? You look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm serious. Do you think you're the only African American up there? Do you think that they just weren't thinking in terms of the racial?
I wasn't the only African American there. Malika was there as well. I'm the only African American guy. Look, you got to remember that night, most people thought Trump was going to lose.
And lose badly.
And so, I mean, and that's the other problem I have with my good progressives. I'm tough on progressives because I have high standards for us. We had been in that Obama bubble bath for like 8 years. And we were just, hey, this feels good, And, when folks stood up, we all wrinkly and weak and nobody's prepared to fight. So, I mean, that's so. But to my own credit, I had been screaming that Trump was likely to win. I mean,
you had,
and I had. And listen, in June of 2016, I put up a video, 3.5-minute video that went massively non-viral.
Move on, the MoveOn.org
the
video.
MoveOn.org, where I got every state right except for Wisconsin.
What was it called?
It was called 3 Stupid Things Progressives Think Is Going to Elect Donald Trump. That will elect Donald Trump. And I went and I talked about how his tweets were, he was not going to blow himself up. I said, what's wrong with these people? He's going to blow himself up. He's going to self-destruct. He's going to self-destruct. And liberals, again, they're not the crazy ones, but they've been saying he's going to blow himself up since the escalator. And he's still here. If you had a child like this, you get him checked out. Look. He'll never win the primary. He's going to blow himself up. He'll never win the general election. He's going to blow himself up. The electors won't seat him. Remember that one?
Yeah.
The electors won't even seat him. He's going to get impeached. Guys, in order for him to be impeached, this Republican Party, who you may have an opinion about, would have to do 2 things that have never happened in American history. No political party has ever impeached its own president, ever. Clinton was impeached by Republicans. Johnson was impeached by his opponents. And then the Senate would have to vote 2/3 to remove him. 2/3 of this Senate? You don't have 2/3 of this Senate that agree they're all senators. I mean, how? That's why it's never happened.
There's nothing that's so egregious. There's nothing that will come out that is so incredibly...
That this Republican Party? Listen.
There's no smoking gun that's big enough.
Do you guys watch TV? Have you seen these people? Listen, I hate to bust your bubble. People, this is not Watergate. This is Iran-Contra, okay?
Yeah.
Some people are going to go to jail. It's going to give a lot of headlines. It's not going to end the Trump presidency. And you guys, at some point, we've got to look at the actual situation, man. Here's the reality. We've been saying he's going to blow himself up, he's going to self-destruct from the beginning. He is not going to. This is the situation that we are in. And it's not only because you have 60 million people who suddenly overnight, unbeknownst to us, all joined the Klan and voted for a bigot because they're all bigots. That is not the right analysis. And when you have the wrong analysis, then you have the wrong answer. And the wrong answer is freak out every morning and be upset. That's not working. So there is, though, an opportunity to get out of this. And it's very simple. In life, you have your circle of concern, all the stuff you're worried about, and you have a much smaller circle called your circle of influence, the stuff you can actually do something about. Successful people, as are most of you, succeed because in endeavors that matter to you, you focus on your circle of influence and trying to grow that. You don't spend a lot of time worrying about your circle of concern with stuff you can't do anything about. Your cousin does that. That's why she's always asking you for money, okay? So we actually know how to be successful. We focus on the areas where we have real influence and real power and real leverage. And a third of this book is just those issues, causes, areas, organizations, left and right, documentaries, books, podcasts, left and right, that can get us the momentum, bringing ourselves together where we can. And as you grow your circle of influence by working on the addiction crisis, which is tearing up this community here, by the way, and West Virginia, by the way, common pain. As you work on criminal justice reform, which is a live issue here in California and also in Texas and Georgia, common pain, but also common purpose. As we start focusing on that stuff, you know what starts to happen? First of all, you start to feel better. I hate to say this to you because you're all my friends. I love you very much. This past 2 years, you've not been very appealing. This is not the sexiest version of yourselves. But when you're out there and you're believing in stuff and you're uniting and you're doing this stuff, you're knocking on doors and you're doing, and you're excited, it's so compelling. You have fundamentally misunderstood what just happened in a way that's causing you to suffer needlessly. This is the easiest way I can say it. When you stood up in 2008 and 2012, and you were yourselves, and you were passionate, and you were strong, you changed history in a positive direction. When you slacked off a little bit, got a little bit arrogant, the country fell apart. That doesn't mean you're powerless. That means you're powerful. You are powerful. But because you're being triggered, because you're being re-traumatized and regress back to when you were kids, and you have to deal with a lot of bullies. Now, I'm being very honest. This is a psychological condition that we gotta get out of now. Here's what's happening. Most of you are very sensitive people. You've been sensitive your whole life. When you were little kids, you were sensitive. Bullying really bothered you as a child. Whether you were being bullied or even just seeing somebody being bullied or mistreated. You sometimes cried more for the kid who was being mistreated than the mistreated kid cried for him or herself because you just have those big hearts like that. And you've spent a lot of your life trying to get away from situations where bullies win, where bigots win, where sexists win, where homophobes win, and you finally got to a place where not only in your community, but you thought in the national community we had gotten to a safer place. And now you've been plunged back into that old thing, and you're regressing. And you're acting like a child who's helpless and who's afraid. You're stronger than you know. That's my point. We are stronger than we know. And our strength is needed now. It's really needed now. And so, this book and the lovearmy.org, which I work with, which I hope people will sign up for, lovearmy.org, is trying to remind us of our own beauty, our own strength, and our own capacity to make change, because we've done it so many times. Breakdowns can lead to breakthroughs if you use them right. It's your whole life. You look back at those breakdown moments, that divorce, when you lost your job, you didn't get this opportunity, somebody said something mean to you, and you used it, and now your life is better. Breakdowns can lead to breakthroughs if you use them right, but breakdowns can lead to more breakdowns if you don't. And so I am no longer interested in encouraging you to explain to your bigoted friend what a bigoted bigot they are. I am trying to encourage you to remember what a beautiful and strong person you are, because your country needs you now. So,
Nice. Going back to what you were talking about in terms of actually two things, circle of influence and doing the same thing over again, expecting a different outcome. Just briefly, before I get to some audience questions, I just want your take on the NFL protest. Do you think that anything positive or anything effective about what Kaepernick started is going to come out of this, or do you think the entire meaning has been lost?
look, we love to focus on shit that does not matter at all. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that
it's true.
The symbols, once you have this much pain and dysfunction and people worrying about symbols, that's a bad emotional, spiritual, psychological cue about where the country is. Now, I will defend Kaepernick on the following grounds. I'll just defend him on the following grounds. Don't forget, we had 2 presidents in a row that didn't like what he was doing. Okay, Obama didn't like it either. Mm-hmm. But what Obama said was he wanted Kaepernick to listen to the people who might be offended by his protest, and he wanted the people who were offended to also listen to Kaepernick because the concerns Kaepernick was trying to raise were serious. So Obama used the same thing to try to create dialogue and build bridges, and this new president is using the same situation to deepen divisions and to blow up bridges. And that's the tragedy of it. I'll defend Kaepernick in the following way. People say, well, these rich celebrities, they're so spoiled and pampered, they should shut up. Why the hell should these rich celebrities have anything to say? And I said, well, hold on a second. The richest celebrity complaining about stuff in the country is Donald Trump. So it's clearly okay in America for rich celebrities to complain because that's all he does, even as president. So they have the right to complain. It's important for us to remember that these young guys come out of neighborhoods. They may be wealthy, but 4 years ago, what's that? Oh, somebody's phone. Isn't that embarrassing? Aren't you glad it's not your phone? Whenever that happens, he's just like, oh my God, and he's like, not me, and then you feel superior. It'll be you in 5 minutes. So, but don't forget that they come from neighborhoods 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, where terrible things happen every day. And they still get text messages from their friends, from their cousins. I just got pulled over. Can you help me? The fact that these young people are willing to risk everything. These are young people who have spent their entire lives since they were little kids working to do one thing. And the fact that they're willing to risk that to say something is really, really extraordinary and should really be applauded and respected. But the fact that that becomes the most important conversation in the country. Yeah. And we aren't even talking, now we're talking about free speech for athletes and whether or not we're respecting soldiers. Not one athlete has ever said one bad thing about a soldier. So the fact that we're so far out in outer space and not even talking about police brutality anymore, that gives you a very, very disturbing insight into where we are as a country. This should not be the most important issue when it comes to race. It is because Trump wants it to be, because Trump believes that the public is with him. Now, here's where the president's right and here's where he's wrong. He's right. The majority of the country, especially the majority of white people, agree with Donald Trump that these young African Americans are being disrespectful. But what Trump doesn't understand is that when you say that 60% of white people or 65% of white people oppose these protests, what you're also saying is that 40 to 45% of white people support these protests, which make them the most popular black protests in the history of the country.
Wow.
Okay? The most popular black protest in the history of the country. Because in the civil rights movement, much to our great shame, 80 to 85% of white people opposed the protest, opposed the freedom riders, opposed the sit-in stuff, opposed Birmingham right until the dogs were unleashed on the children. So
television.
Television. So let's not forget, black protest is always unpopular. But these protests are the most popular black protests in the history of the country, and it gives you some insight into where we're going. The majority of white people may be in the caboose. They may not be on the front edge of all these different things.
Yeah.
But they're not trying to knock a train over. There's something happening in white America where some people are being whipped up, and maybe they may have some fatigue, and they may feel frustrated, they may feel left out of these conversations, but even that, I have found in my travels, is thinner than we know. When I go into West Virginia, when I go into parts of Indiana, and they tense up because here comes this black liberal from CNN, is going to call them bad names or whatever, and we start talking, I'm always impressed by some of the white guys who we love to put down. Let's not forget, you're talking about people who often their family has served in the military, or they have. Their family has served as firefighters, policemen, or they have, police officers, or they have. And there's a reservoir of pride and goodwill there that we often don't recognize or appeal to. And so sometimes they'll try to get at me about, Van Jones, you're always talking about police brutality, but what about those black kids killing black kids? And rather than get offended at this point, I'll point out and say, you know what, you're right. You got a whole generation of African American kids in an urban environment being crushed between unlawful street violence and too often unlawful police violence. And Democrats have not done enough about it and have let those young folks down. And by the way, you got a lot of poor white kids in red counties and red towns that are struggling with addiction and suicide and everything, and your Republicans have let them down too. What can we do to help these young guys? Mm-hmm. And they instantly have so many ideas. Well, I wish I could take some of them out hunting, because I know you don't like hunting, but I'm going to tell you, I learned. And I said, wait. You would like to be in touch and communication with some of those young kids in the urban environment? Yeah, but I don't know how to reach them. But yeah, because, well, hold on a second. I'm going to set aside all the things that you said in the past 15 minutes that a younger version of myself would have gone Black Lives Matter upside your head on. And I'm going to notice something. You've got assets. You've got resources. Mm-hmm. And you have a part of you that nobody's encouraging that wants to be connected.
That 10%, you're right about
that 10%. When I'm in South Central Los Angeles, I'm looking around, I'm seeing African American communities that have been incredibly resilient in the face of an addiction crisis when it comes to narcotics. These folks have a genius for recovery, for resilience, an understanding of addiction. How come we aren't getting in airplanes and going to West Virginia as African Americans say, you know what, you've got an addiction crisis, we can help. Mm-hmm. Because nobody is encouraging that kind of exchange, of strength, of resources, of insight. That's what's missing. The great words, positive or negative, don't matter as much as the absence of great work. That's really what we've got to do. And so I talk about it in the book. I fundamentally believe that we have misunderstood this problem. The problem with the country is not that the bad, mean people are doing too much bad, mean stuff. The problem is that the good people in both parties and in all races don't know what to do yet. And so if we can start working on that, that's something you can do about. Are we going to fight about women's right to choose every day, twice a day? Yes. Are we going to fight about immigration? Yes. Are we going to fight? Yes. We can fight about all that stuff. Are some of them morally, disappointing? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, we can talk about that. But you can't just fight and critique and have a country that works. At some point, we've got to find those creative solutions. And that's why I'm proud to be a part of lovearmy.org. I'm proud to be a part of the Dream Corps. I'm proud to have this book out. I'm proud to be somebody who's walking out in the middle of this civil war. Because that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
And say to folks, you can blow up the bridges if you want to, but how are the kids going to get around? You can tear this whole thing apart. You can be right. You can be right. You've been right. You've been right since the escalator. And you can be right for 16 more years.
Wow.
But I think that you can be more than right. I think you can be good. I think you can be full of grace. I think you can be a healer. I think you can be a listener, somebody who's empathetic, somebody who grows to meet the moment. And that's really what I think is available for us now.
Got a couple minutes. We just got a couple of minutes, so I want to get to some of the questions from the
lightning
audience.
round. Here we go.
Lightning round. Okay. What is your favorite part of Beyond the Messy Truth? I could hear Prince's voice tell you that this won't be the worst. This won't be the worst thing.
I'm sorry?
I don't understand that either. What is your favorite part of the Messy Truth? I get that part, and they're asking you write about your friendship and your relationship with Prince in the book.
Prince, the late rock star, was one of my closest friends, and I talk about him in the book. I talk about his impact on me. The one thing I'll say is that being on stage with him showed me something that you can't explain, you can't argue for, you just have to experience it. Usually when you're at a concert, all you see is like the back of people's heads and like a bunch of cell phones held up to like record the concert, and then the artist on stage. But because he would have us on stage with him, I got a chance to see him and the band, but I also got a chance to look out into the faces of people, the faces of people. And if you've never been on stage, never been on a big stage, what you don't understand is if everybody can see you, you can see everybody. I can see every one of your faces, every one of you. I'm not on television, see? And with Prince, every color, every class, every kind of human ever born would come to Prince concerts. Young, old, didn't matter. Rockers, nerds, hip-hop people, didn't matter. And I got a chance to see, he'd come out and hit one chord and have everybody united. And even the stuff we worked on together, Yes We Code or Green for All, they were never red solutions or blue solutions. They were purple. That was him. He's purple. And so they would, he had a way of appealing to everybody, even though he was very radical in his commitment to poor people. And so I've seen things in my life. I was in the Obama White House. I know what beauty is. I've seen it. I've been on stage with Prince in front of 20,000, 50,000 people. I've worked with people that you would never have thought I would ever work with. People like Newt Gingrich to close prisons. And I've seen him shed tears over what's happening to young black boys. It would shock you, the things that I've got a chance to see with my own eyes. The Coke Industries, this terrible company that spent all this money ruining our democracy, ruining the earth, they spent millions of dollars to get me out of the White House and won. They gave the money to Americans for Prosperity that chased me out of the White House. Mm-hmm. But I work with them on a regular basis to close prisons, because even though we're 90% enemies, we're 10% friends where we agree, and we agree about closing prisons. And I've never met a single person in prison, right? I've never met a single person in prison who said, I want to get out of prison, or I've got a child in prison. Please, Van, help me get my child out of prison. But whatever you do, don't work with any Republicans.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, because real people with real problems want solutions. And they know it's going to take a lot more than just everybody who's a black, progressive, heterosexual male to get them out. Mm-hmm. There's not enough of me to win by myself. There's not enough of you either. And so, I've seen things that let me know that we're being tricked. We're being triggered. And we're going to be forced to use muscles we didn't know we had to get out of it. So I wear purple every time I can. I got purple socks on. I got purple underwear on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's close with this, and I think this is a good question to close on. And that is, why isn't the truth held in higher regard? And why isn't the Trump supporter okay with being lied to on a daily basis? Why isn't the truth today in 2017 held in higher regard?
See, the arrogance that underlies that question is the problem. The person who wrote that question at that moment, and not at all times in their life, but at that moment, I would bet, was thinking that they know the truth and that the Trump supporter doesn't. And that's all Trump needs to win. The truth is messy. I wrote a book about it. It's not just one thing. It's not just one point of view. The liberals are often more accurate on scientific data about, say, climate, mm-hmm. which is the thing that liberals love to hang on to beat the Republicans over the head to say that, we're smart, rational, Spock-like beings, and, you are these emotional, easily duped, idiots, more kale for you. So, yes, are the liberals more accurate on some of these claims? Yes, they're more accurate. But their emotional intelligence is for shit. So, the truth is more than just rational claims about scientific data. The truth isn't just the facts, it's the feelings. That's a part of the truth too. Mm-hmm. And if you can constitute your global warming community as a stuck-up club of smarty-pants people who went to good schools, then it is true that I don't belong to that club. And I don't have to follow that club. And I don't want to be dominated by that club or bossed by that club. See, that's true too. The truth is messy. A lot of people who love science, when there's an opportunity to beat somebody up on the right wing about global warming, will turn right around and they won't eat GMOs because, but the scientists say that the GMOs are fine.
Vaccinations, you're right about.
Vaccinations. A lot of people who are liberals and who say that, the vaccinations are bad, but the scientists say that they're good. So people are picking and choosing their science on all sides. But that's not the real point anyway. People are picking and choosing their community and their meaning and where they belong. Much more than it's secondary, all this other stuff. Look, I'm going to be very honest. I can't read the climate data any more than you can. But I'm a liberal, so I'm for it. And so I am heartbroken, hopeful, but heartbroken, but hopeful. Almost everybody in this room has invested time in their own healing, in their own self-actualization, in their own spiritual growth, in their own, and all that stuff. And this is the Bay Area is a platinum mine repository for that kind of wisdom. Mm-hmm. But it is not showing up in these political conversations. It's not. And if it doesn't show up with folks like us who've got the intellectual and financial and social and other capacity to be able to show up bright and beautiful, then I think it's really bizarre that we then expect other people to be so transformed and amazing. So I go around the country, I challenge everybody. I think I know you guys pretty well. And I think you're pretty awesome, except when you choose to suck. And so this past 2 years, Trump has been ADD, and now you're ADD. Trump has been easily distracted and kind of mean-spirited, and now you are easily distracted and kind of mean-spirited. Trump, even when he has political losses, has spiritual victories because he's pulling all of us down to his level anyway. I am 100% sure, because by the way, I work in a bipartisan way, so I know a bunch of people in the Trump White House. I know a bunch of people in Pelosi's office. I'm the only person that know everybody. And I'm 100% sure, that when you start showing up as beautiful as you are, this thing ends. It ends.
It's a nice way to end this.
Yeah.
Van Jones, a pleasure.
Thank you.
Read this book.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you.